Hello and welcome to another episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. I'm Dave G, and joining me tonight is my co-host.
Hello everybody, I'm Kyle.
And tonight we're going to be taking a look at one of those movies that kind of came out during the whole lockdown thing for the pandemic, and a lot of people actually missed it. In fact, I've had a few people ask me just recently, when is it coming out? That film is Bill and Ted Face the Music. Of course, the much sought after reboot of a franchise that a lot of us loved when we were younger. Now, why are people asking if this movie ever came out? It's because, especially here in Australia, this film was one of the films that they tried to do the whole pay $29.95 and buy it online kind of thing while people were in lockdown. That spectacularly failed in Australia. At the same time, nearly every capital city, I think it was except for Sydney and Melbourne, got this straight into cinemas because they were back open. And then Sydney and Melbourne kind of did limited runs when they opened back up. But because the cinemas were open, closed all the time, nobody really knew what was on at that stage. So a lot of people missed this film. So a lot of people now are very excited that it is out on DVD and Blu-ray. What can I say about this film except for what I just said before? This movie was so eagerly sought after. At the start of 2020, it was voted in as one of the most eagerly anticipated movies of the year because basically we saw the two lovable losers, Ted, played by Keanu Reeves, and Bill, played by Alex Winter, coming back all these years later. This time they're kind of failed musicians because they had a little bit of a career. It's fallen apart. They kind of failed. But they're suddenly having to save the world once again by remembering how to write the perfect song. And they're helped by their daughters, Billy, played by Bridget Lundy Payne, and Thea, played by Samara Weaving. Now, mate, I know you're a big fan of the Bill and Ted movies from years and years ago, just like I was. So what were your thoughts when you first saw Bill and Ted Face the Music?
Oh man, I was really excited to finally get to see this movie. Like you say, it's a movie that fans of Bill and Ted, Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey, like fans have been waiting for a very long time, and it's kind of like I guess like a third Ghostbusters movie in the same way. It's like it always seemed to be a movie that was being made. Like the people. Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter wanted to make it, but it always seemed to be just something that never actually happened, you know. So I've been a huge fan of it growing up. I watched the movies, watched the animated series. I played the Commodore 64 adventure game. Like I really loved it, and I was also a fan of Alex Winter's special effects makeup comedy movie that he made called Freaked, which featured himself and Keanu Reeves as well.
Yep.
It was really great to finally see this, and it's we've seen a lot of other movies that coming back after a long time, like comedy movies, a long time later sequels, and a lot of them really failed to hit that same mark. I think Zombieland 2 was really one of the only ones that did.
Yeah.
And I think that this one really it's not a perfect film, but realistically, I think it's about the best that fans of this franchise could possibly have hoped for. As far as a third movie years later, there's plenty of laughs. Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves are still lovable in their roles, and it's handled by people who knew how to make this kind of film, being written by the same two writers who wrote the previous two films, and directed by Dean Parisot, who directed Galaxy Quest. So he's a director who knows fandoms, and he knows how to keep people happy, I guess. I really had a lot of fun with this movie. I really enjoyed it. What did you think of it, dude? Because I know, you're quite a fan of the movies as well.
Yeah, I had serious issues with this film. Like, I never thought that a movie that I'd been looking forward to for about a decade, I would find myself halfway through it and find myself so bored that, Yeah, as I always say, I always know that if I'm not enjoying a movie because I find myself thinking about my next meal halfway through it. And I went and saw this movie at like a morning session at a multiplex, and I found myself thinking, what am I going to have for lunch today? About halfway through this film, I just thought that the film, like, I know it's a sticky area because so many people want the characters to be the same, but I just thought because there is like that 20, 30-year gap in these characters' ages that they would have grown. Like, they're still talking like the teenage stoner losers that they were like when they were in high school, but now they're dads and they're married, and you would expect that they'd like kind of matured in life a little bit as well. And I don't know, I just had a real problem with that. But also at the same time, I also thought that like the adventure that they were put on this time was kind of lame. Like, I don't know if I wanted something more epic because film has changed over that 20, 30 years. But I don't know, I just thought that even the whole task thing that they had to do this time was kind of lame, except for a few parts of it.
Yeah, I don't really know where the idea that they had to write this one amazing song that was going to save the whole world, and they had to do that within 70 minutes, like in real time. I don't know where that idea came from. It seemed to be just something that they just come up with for the sake of this movie. I did, yeah. It's like Bogus Journey kind of ended with the idea that they had saved the world and all that, but I think that's mainly because I think the studio had added a bunch of stuff, and like they would like post almost like news articles coming up during the credits, and that was something that the writers hadn't added themselves. So like the studio, how they made the last movie kind of affected, kind of put the writers into a corner as far as how they were supposed to make a new story for this one.
Yeah.
Also, I think it definitely is a movie that's got I think it had a lot of like private funding. It was kind of a crowd-funded movie a bit, I believe, or at least it definitely feels like it. I know, Super Troopers 2 is something very similar, where it was a huge cult movie, and basically they asked fans to help them produce a sequel. I do think it is kind of tricky, like, watching Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter back in these roles like 30 years after the original movie was made. And I think that in Bogus Journey they did kind of show their characters aging a little bit. I think that was mainly because Excellent Adventures was on the shelf for so long before it was released. So even though the sequel came out like 2 years after the first movie did, realistically it was made like 5 years after the first movie. Yeah. So they had to age the characters up a bit, and so I guess in a way, watching them back to back, they are getting older. It's like it's not like they're always teenagers, but yeah, it is a little. I guess you've really got to It really relies on how endearing you find the characters, and how lovable you find Bill and Ted as characters, and Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves in these performances. Because as you say, it is a little odd watching guys pushing 50 playing like basically like teenage characters. You know, it is a little awkward that way.
Yeah, and like. I actually thought that they could have been smarter about this and almost kind of made the movie so that they had changed so much that they weren't like their former selves. Like they have gone and got like boring jobs and stuff like that. And I don't know, I guess like kind of if you go back and have a look at that original series of movies, the New Jersey series that Kevin Smith made, those characters matured along the way. Like, you could argue that, like, even Jay and Silent Bob matured, like, in a sense. Like, if you go right back to when you watch the original Clerks film to what even Jay is like in that film and then what you get in Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, he has kind of matured. I'll leave Clerks 2 out of that discussion because like I think they went backwards in that film, but I don't know, like you almost sit during this film and go, are these guys mentally challenged? Like, is that why they're still man children, like they're kind of thing? But I also thought it was kind of awkward. Now, I'm not bagging this for bringing the daughters in. I think having their kids involved in this is actually a good way of doing it. I thought it was awkward the way that they did it, though. It felt really forced. Like, it would have been so much better if they'd just gone, okay, so these characters do have to do this task kind of thing if their daughters went with them, instead of having, like, the whole separate kind of task thing for the daughters. I don't know, it just felt like a really kind of clumsy film. And there was times that I laughed. Like, I love the bits where they've got, like, the counseling session with their wives. I love some of the cameos in this. But I don't know, it just at times felt like really awkward. And I know that the writers are the same writers from the originals, but if you'd sat me down and let me watch this movie and hadn't told me that, I would have thought this was written by people that didn't know that much about the first two films.
I think it's very thin, like almost like the movie spreads itself too wide, I guess. Because I guess having so many different points in the movie, like you've got Bill and Ted kind of jumping around through time to try to go to older versions of themselves to try to find all the versions of themselves that have actually written this song. And I did find that to be amusing, like the different older versions of themselves and how completely different they are. I thought that was pretty funny, but like you've got that happening, and then you've got their two daughters jumping through time almost like they're going in the opposite direction, going backwards through time. And then on top of that, you've got characters from the far off future as they are kind of losing faith in this whole prophecy of that Bill and Ted were supposed to be the ones to save the day.
Yeah.
It's almost, whereas the other movies, they really did just focus on Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
I think had the movie, I think you're right. I actually really did like I actually did really like the daughters. I thought that I would hate them because, like, when it came out that they didn't have sons, which was kind of established in the previous films. They didn't have sons. They actually had daughters in this movie. I'll be honest, I was a little worried because kind of there's a tendency now that like you'd think that the movie would actually be largely about the two of them and kind of running down their father figures.
Yeah.
But it's completely not like that. It's like they do. Well, I did find them kind of complementary characters to Bill and Ted. Like they did seem like what Bill and Ted. If Bill and Ted had daughters, this is how messed up these daughters would be. You know, like I thought that the performances of both the actresses were great as well. But yeah, I think I would have liked to have seen them a little bit more in the movie, and yeah, if maybe had they actually gone along with Bill and Ted on the journey, but I'm not sure how much of that was because we just want Bill and Ted scenes to be just Bill and Ted scenes, and the scenes with their daughters to be just the scenes with them, you know. So maybe they were worried about having scenes be too busy if it's like basically a whole fellowship of characters wandering around the place, rather than it just being like Bill and Ted being the focal point. But yeah, I do think maybe the movie splitting itself off in so many different directions did kind of make it make the story feel a little bit more flimsy than it was. What did you think of the actresses that played the daughters?
I thought they did a great job. Like, of course, I knew Samara Weaving. I've been a big fan of her work since I saw her in the little Aussie film called Bad Girl. I didn't know that much about Brigitte Lundy Payne, to be honest, but I thought she did a really good job in this, and I kind of liked the Kristen Scholl's character of Kelly as well. I thought they all did a great job. I thought they were just let down a little bit by the way that their characters were kind of used in the film. It's so awkward. Like, this is one time when, and I know this goes against what I normally say about Hollywood movies, this is one time where I think a spin-off movie about their daughters would have worked fine, and maybe just had cameos from Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, because I'm sure there's a way they could have structured that screenplay so that it was the daughters had to do the task and they had to work out how their fathers wrote a famous song. And I think the film probably would have arguably kind of worked better than what it did. But for me, what saved this movie was the character of Dennis Caleb McCoy. I loved that character. I thought that, sometimes when they shove a new character into a franchise that's already existed for a while, it like seems a little bit desperate. But no, I really liked him playing the hitman kind of character, and I thought Anthony Carrigan did a really, really good job in that role.
The hitman android kind of.
Yeah.
I found him. That was quite enjoyable as well. I thought the movie did have a lot of callbacks, a lot of references to the other movies, which I thought was great. Like seeing William Sadler as Death again.
Yeah.
Which I know a lot of fans kind of had problems with Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey because of how silly it was compared to the original movie. But I think people genuinely do love that character, the character of Death in that film. So it was great to see him back in this. I actually felt kind of the opposite with Kristen Schaal, because at least she's playing the same kind of thing to George Carlin's character Rufus from the original movies that Bill and Ted's daughters are playing to them. And so while I found that both of those actresses, that Samara Weaving and Bridget Lundy Payne, they kind of almost channeled the younger Bill and Ted characters. I thought that Kristen Schaal was kind of playing her own, the type of role that she plays in almost everything.
Yeah.
I thought just it seemed more like a I don't know. I guess I know that they wanted to have references to Rufus and pay homage to George Carlin following his death, of course. But I don't know. I think there are other female comedians that are almost more like a George Carlin-esque personality than Kristen Schaal was.
Yeah.
I just think that she's really the only part of the movie that, like, for me, I thought was maybe a little bit miscast.
Yeah.
So that was really the one part. But other than that, as far as it, I guess I've seen so many that it really is in the last few years. There's been so many long time later sequels coming out.
Yeah.
And so I guess I've seen so many that I think have just completely missed the point of the earlier film. Bad Santa 2, I think, was just a really awful one, and kind of, it's a movie that it's best to just ignore.
Yeah.
Because it kind of does, hurt your enjoyment of the original film. But this one, I think, at least as far, like I said, it's not a great movie, but I think as far as it being a third movie, I believe at least somewhat, partially crowdsourced, and all in all, it's probably, and as far as it being something that kind of manages to join together Bogus Journey and Excellent Adventure, because again, like I said, people didn't really like the way the Bogus Journey went in such a silly direction.
Yeah.
I think that this one, it's probably about as best as we could have hoped for. I just say maybe a spin-off movie would have been interesting, and I think they might still be able to do something like that.
Yeah.
Because depending on, I guess, in how much people enjoyed the daughter characters, But yeah, I guess I just think it's probably about the best that we could have hoped for as far as sequel goes.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I might go back and revisit it, but yeah, I was pretty disappointed the first time I went back and watched it. I certainly didn't feel the magic there that I got when I watched the first two films, and I guess maybe part of that is because I've matured as well. But like, yeah, I just even found like the characters that they met this time on the journey, like that the daughters went back and got the different musicians that I thought they could have done more with that. And like, I know you're getting into dangerous territory because you do have to get the rights off the estate to do that kind of thing in cinema, but I just wondered whether it would have been like a little bit better for the new generation if they'd done people like John Lennon and stuff like that. Like, you're supposed to be writing the most perfect song of all times, and when you have a look at any list of when they put together lists of the best songwriters of like the last couple of centuries, you get people like John Lennon, Prince, that wrote a lot of music for other people as well as themselves. But yeah, some of the people that they picked on this, it was kind of like, really, Jimi Hendrix, like one of the great. Yeah,
I did like them going back and getting like different people for like to try to make a super group. But yeah, I agree. Some of the choices were a little off.
Yeah. Just seemed a little bit weird to me, but yeah. But I guess to sum up, what are you going to give this 1 out of 5?
I'm gonna have to. I've got to give this 4 out of 5 myself. I really did enjoy. I really did have a fun time watching it. Like I said, it's not. I've said it a bunch, but it's like it's not a brilliant movie. It's not like a really great sequel, and it doesn't really live up to the other two. But I think it's probably about the best that we could have hoped for. I believe.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit harsher. I still think I really didn't like this film. It was kind of disappointing for me, and it was almost kind of like what the disappointment I felt with some of the other reboots that have happened over the past few years, where I was so looking forward to them, and then I felt the reboot really let it down. So it's going to be a 2 out of 5 for me. But that's it for this episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. Go out, have a look at Bill and Ted Face the Music and see what you thought, and maybe you like it a little bit more than what I did. Maybe you're on Kyle's side, but go and check it out. But for now, I've been Dave G.
And I've been Kyle.
And we'll be back soon with another episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy.